Hello, and thank you for being here for the presentation of my final case study analysis on Volkswagen and their emission scandal. My name is Alexa Maldonado, and I will be explaining an ongoing problem popular car manufacturer Volkswagen is facing, which has been quite damaging to their reputation. The question we are looking at today is, what would you advise Volkswagen do to avoid similar situations in the future? In order to answer this, I will first provide background on the situation, talk about key players and the ongoing problem Volkswagen is experiencing, before diving into examining the three root causes of the issue. Afterwards, I will offer my long and short term recommendations to help combat these issues that they're facing. So, let's begin. So, the problem Volkswagen is facing is that they've diminished their credibility due to repeated deception to the public. This particular situation involved marketing their vehicles as being clean diesel, when in reality, they were just programmed with a defeat device that fooled emissions tests and in reality dumped 40 times the legal limit of pollution into the air. Oh, and 11 million of these cars were distributed worldwide. MIT experts calculate that this scandal will result in 1,200 premature deaths from the excess pollution released, just in Europe alone. Now, Volkswagen has to pay up. And honestly, they don't see anything wrong with their behavior. However, their unethical practices can be traced back to their atypical board structure, their resistance to change, and their ambiguous and concealed company culture. So, let's begin with talking about the most severe of the causes: the company's inadequate leadership. Despite strict German law regarding supervisory board structures, Volkswagen still found ways to make their board favored in support of the labor workers, which did not create the intended balance the German government was striving for when creating these laws. One of the ways was reserving seats, particularly for Lower Saxony government representatives, as Lower Saxony was a part owner of Volkswagen. A quote that also supports this comes from a former executive who is speaking to the New York Times. What management, the government, and the unions all want is full employment, and the more jobs, the better. That's the push to be number one in the world. They'll look the other way about anything. So, this quote reveals where the true priorities of the companies lay. This essentially means that decisions are no longer business initiatives versus laborers, because the board will almost inevitably vote in favor of the workers every single time. The Porsche and Peach families make up 40% of Volkswagen's board, with the government officials making up the other half of the shareholder side. Not only does this demonstrate the tip towards favoring workers, it also reveals that the board may have a limited range of perspectives and viewpoints, considering how close knit they all are. They are so tight knit that Matthias Müller, CEO of Porsche, took over as CEO after Martin Winterkorn resigned. He also was very hostile about discussing the scandal and made it clear that he did not want to engage in a proactive public response regarding the situation. This may have the public feeling a lack of transparency or lack of response from Volkswagen regarding the situation. This brings me to the next cause of their diminished credibility, and that is their ambiguous company culture. In Strategy 2018, they listed out four ambitious initiatives they wanted to reach by 2018. While these initiatives would mean great things for Volkswagen in terms of their numbers, they did not focus on anything else, such as creating an equitable workplace or sustainability efforts. Instead, they actually ended up contributing to a lot of added pollution because of their unethical practices. The current culture at Volkswagen is one driven by fear. Employees are afraid to go against their managers, which causes a very top down workplace that tends to suppress lots of innovative ideas. The environment has also been described as do it or else, which may leave employees feeling threatened by their supervisors. This can lead to undue employee stress set by these ambitious and highly unattainable goals. Lastly, the culture at Volkswagen is not one of ownership. This is evident when the executives at the organization attempted to blame the clean diesel scandal on rogue engineers. They were willing to point the blame anywhere else as long as the focus wasn't on them. This can also be seen by the punishment of solely lower level management and no one from the top levels being asked to resign from their positions. The last big cause of the issue VW is seeing is due to the organization's resistance to change. They are ignoring clear market trends despite stating in their Strategy 2018 that they wanted to pick up sales, particularly in their US, Russia, and China markets. To know that SUV sales are on the rise in the US, but to not have an affordable option on the market is just one example of how Volkswagen is not fully capitalizing on market trends. Additionally, with the fear mongering culture comes overly ambitious goals, some that are even impossible to achieve. That's how Volkswagen found themselves involved in the clean diesel scandal anyway. Because instead of listening to engineers who said there was no way to make these engines that fuel efficient with the given parameters, it just led to the company acting in an extremely unethical manner. That is often the result of these ambitious goals. Even when outside help is brought in with the intent of fixing the company's issue, they are resistant to do so. This is showcased when Christine Hauman Denhert was hired to manage integrity and legal affairs pertaining to the case. She didn't stay long due to differences in the understanding of responsibilities and future operating structures. So, how can Volkswagen begin addressing this problem and salvaging their reputation? I've outlined short and long term actionable steps that can help them get back on track. Starting with addressing the leadership, they need to immediately remove Moeller as CEO. They need to appoint someone who does not have ties to any shareholders or their relatives, since the public will be more likely to trust someone not involved with the scandal. Looking further into the year, Volkswagen needs to redevelop the methods for appointing members to their board. Applications should be submitted by every interested candidate, and the terms should be limited to 3-year durations. Both of these suggestions will bring in fresh perspectives and ideas to the organization, helping them take the first step in reestablishing their credibility. Next, to clarify their culture, executive management at Volkswagen needs to revisit the mission statement and their values. Employees should have a clear picture of what it is their workplace stands for and the values they are expected to uphold as a representative of the company. Volkswagen also needs to work towards eliminating the rigid top down management by enforcing open door policies, quarterly town hall meetings for all levels of management, and biannual employee surveys to determine overall employee satisfaction and also spark conversation between all management levels, not just the executive group. Lastly, Volkswagen needs to address their resistance to change. They need to begin to embrace change, especially working in an industry that sees ever changing trends. Since Volkswagen maintains a global presence, they should establish quarterly meetings with international representatives from each market to ensure they are aware of all market trends worldwide. Additionally, since change is hard, they should look into adopting a company change management model. This model will serve as a guideline for any employee, manager, shareholder, or just anyone else to reference during times of change at the company. It will help VW understand how to navigate these periods of change since they struggle with them. By implementing these recommendations, Volkswagen can work towards reestablishing their credibility with the consumer market. Thank you for listening.